Today on Christian World News, she's on a whirlwind tour of 11 countries in 11 months. This young lady is competing in what's called the world race, and the goal is to spread the gospel.
Plus, missing missionary pilot Jerry Krause disappeared en route from South Africa to Mali. 2 months later, his family is still looking for answers.
And losing faith in the United Kingdom. This former archbishop is taking the country's prime minister to task for his government's discrimination against Christians.
Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith.
And I am George Thomas. Well, imagine quitting your job, leaving everything behind, and setting off on a trip, one that goes to 11 countries in 11 months.
Sounds very exciting to me. Well, recently I met one young lady who's doing just that. She's having the adventure of a lifetime on what's called the world race.
In these cultures that we're going to, people don't care what you look like or what you smell like, or, you know, they care about the message that you have.
"28-year-old Emily Wright of Virginia Beach left her job, her apartment, and her family to take the World Race Challenge. That means over the next 11 months, Emily will visit 11 countries for about 30 days each.
You know, I'm excited just to be a part of something bigger than myself.
Her adventure began helping orphans in Mozambique. From there, she goes to Swaziland, South Africa, India, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Moldova, and will end her journey in Romania. The World Race, now in its 7th year, establishes contacts in each country, so Emily and her team will work with local churches and ministries in the region.
The ministries could range from Vacation Bible School to working in orphanages to ministering to women and children who have been in human trafficking, especially in Southeast Asia.
Emily's group is part of a larger team of about 50 racers who've been asked to travel light.
I will have one backpack for the entire 11 months, and I'll be taking a tent. So sometimes we'll have accommodations and sometimes we won't.
How do you feel about going a week without a shower?
I'm the type of girl who can handle that, and in training we had practice doing that. We were living in the woods for a week, group of 50 people, getting close together.
World Race founder Seth Barnes came up with the idea several years ago to give young people an alternative to the 9-to-5 routine.
We push people to do what we call a Luke 10 kind of journey, where they go out and they take virtually nothing, and they know that they've got all spiritual authority, and we ask them to pray for local needs and see what God does when he shows up. And it inevitably changes them as they depend on God with total dependence, that he shows up in power.
Barnes says thousands of young people apply each year because they're looking for more.
By leaving all of this stuff that has defined us and just allowing God to open up his possibilities in all different cultures, they find that there's more to life, that this yearning that they've had inside has an answer.
One thing Emily and her team are discovering is that mission work can be tough and that spiritual warfare is real. Emily shared this recent blog post from Mozambique. "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. In ministry, I see children who are dying in the hospital who have nothing. No bed sheets, no food, no doctors, no paper towels to wipe up their mess. It's so easy to just see the hopelessness and the darkness. But the truth is that God has authority over every seemingly hopeless situation. He is trustworthy, he is good, and he is our healer. And ultimately, he has already defeated sickness and death." If you'd like to take the World Race Challenge like Emily, you just need to be between the ages of 21 and 35 and have a heart for missions and adventure. It'll cost you about $15,000 for the entire journey, but you don't have to have it all before you go. Emily says although the journey is not always easy, her mission remains the same: God's love.
whatever form that takes, giving them shoes or taking them out for an evening, or Jesus said to heal the sick, cast out demons, and raise the dead. And so they really ask you to have that kind of faith.
I loved meeting Emily, and you can follow her adventure online. See what country she's in. She's in India right now, by the way, and you can even help her cause by going to her blog page, which is fantastic, by the way. Find the link at our website, cbnnews.com. George?
Great story. Where is Jerry Krause? The American missionary to Africa has been missing for nearly 2 months. His family and Christians around the world are praying for answers. Ephraim Graham has the details.
Jerry Krause, a 54-year-old missionary pilot, was flying his turboprop aircraft from South Africa to Mali last April 7th when he disappeared. His wife Gina is praying he'll return home.
I want my husband back.
She and Jerry have served as missionaries to Africa for more than 25 years. Jerry worked with Mission Aviation Fellowship until the ministry left Mali back in 2009. They remained in the country, and Jerry took a job with a private aviation company.
My husband is self-motivated, very intelligent.
Jessica is one of Jerry's daughters.
He's a central figure to our family and just like a man of God, you know? He's awesome. I love him to death.
He's so solid. He just keeps our family together.
Now Jerry's family is having to rely more on God. Gina says her husband phoned her before departing South Africa and said he'd had some engine problems with the plane. She says she knew Jerry could fix the engines and then be on his way.
He's a little bit of a MacGyver. He likes fiddling with things and is able to get things to work. So he was going to do that, and he was pretty optimistic about leaving.
Then Jerry was back on his way to Mali. His wife and children expected him to refuel in Sao Tome, an island nation at the equator in the Gulf of Guinea. But no one could tell the family if he was seen refueling there. Now, the question they're facing: did Jerry experience engine trouble and land the plane safely in a remote region of Africa? Or did something worse happen?
Though we didn't have any concrete evidence, I think rationally, there's definitely a lot of different little indications leaning towards a plane crash.
No plane wreckage turned up after rescuers searched the Gulf of Guinea. Not knowing her father's whereabouts or what happened is the hardest part for daughter Alyssa. She says she's come to trust God in everything.
Okay, all right, God, this is all yours. You can, whenever you're ready to tell us where my dad is, that's awesome, but we'll wait for your timing because your timing's perfect.
Jerry's son Nathan says the book of Job reminds him not to blame God for the ordeal.
But I'm giving praise to God instead and asking God, like, why did he do this? But not in a demeaning way, but just questioning and waiting for God to answer.
And nearly 2 months later, Gina and the children still wait for a resolution to Jerry's mysterious disappearance.
To this day, we still don't know where Jerry is, but God does.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
And our thoughts and prayers are with the Krause family. Our thanks to Ewan and Anko van Bergen for providing the video to our report. For more information, check out the family's website. You can find that link at cbnnews.com.
And coming up, Christians suffer more persecution than any religious group in the world. The latest news on the suffering church.
From CBN.
Someone forgot to lock up.
Everyone deserves a second chance.
And you're sure it was Sharon? Definitely, Principal Travis. Maybe this time we can help her make another choice. What's up? I can't believe it. Sharon Meyer stole a bike in broad daylight, and Miss Travis just wants to let her slide by. Superbook!
Log on to CBN.com and receive Superbook's newest episode, Jonah, for your gift of $25.
Nineveh. God wanted me to warn them he was about to pass judgment. I say no. If Nineveh is doomed, then let it be doomed. Get him off this ship!
I thought thought fish were slimy on the outside.
Give the children you love the Word of God as a foundation in their lives.
People of Nineveh!
It is amazing. Your words have been heard by all of Nineveh.
Superbook Jonah, available now.
He healed the sick, walked on water, and rebuked the storm. Jesus performed miracles that changed the world, and he shared the secret to that power with you and me.
Gordon Robertson, in his latest DVD, Our Father, Keys to the Lord's Prayer, takes you on a journey from King David's palace to the Sea of Galilee, revealing the mystery and the meaning of the greatest prayer of all time. You'll discover a deeper relationship with God, what it means to overcome evil, how to pray in the power of the kingdom, and the life-changing purpose God has for you. As a special bonus, you'll see a tour of some of Israel's most important sites and learn the amazing discoveries that are being uncovered today.
Learn how to pray the way Jesus prayed and release the power of God's kingdom in your life.
Get Our Father, Keys to the Lord's Prayer, available now.
Authorities in Iran raided a Tehran church this week. The Farsi Christian News Network reports that security agents entered church premises, arrested everyone present, and confiscated materials there. The detainees are being held in an undisclosed location. The raid came just days after church elders asked authorities for information about another detained pastor and his wife.
Persecution of Christians is especially harsh, as you know, in Muslim countries, but it's happening all over the world. A new report from the U.S. State Department recently listed the worst countries for religious freedom. I spoke with our chief international correspondent, Gary Lane, earlier this week about some of the hotspots. President Obama met with the president of Burma. First time in 60 years that the Burmese president has come.
Historic.
Here, very historic. But Burma continues to be a country of concern. Is the United States moving too quick in these economic relations?
Well, those who are working Burma, the relief agencies, and especially the Christians say, yes, the U.S. is moving too fast because the Burmese government, while it is freeing political prisoners from jail, it is cracking down on Christians, particularly the ethnic Kachin people who live in the northern part of the country, burning churches, tearing down churches, forcing many of them into forced labor, and really oppressing the Kachin people, and the vast majority of them are Christian.
Another country is Egypt. We've been reporting on this in the last 24, 27 months since the fall of the Mubarak regime. This particular report faults the government for the lack of protection against for Coptic Christians. What's going on here?
And that is accurate for them to fault the government for that. For example, the radical Muslims will go and they'll attack a church, try to destroy a church, burn it down, or level the church. And guess what? Christians will call the police, nothing happens. The police will arrive many hours after the incident, and then they'll arrest the Christians. The Christians say, hey, what are you arresting us for? We haven't done anything. We were the victims here. So this is a very accurate indication of what is happening in Egypt today.
Another country that you are very familiar with, Gary, is Sudan. We've reported over the years the attacks against Christians in the Nuba Mountains, but now there are reports of persecution in the capital of Sudan, in Khartoum. What's up with that?
Khartoum, it's a mess right now for Christians. Churches have been closed. The government wants all Christians out of Sudan.
And where's that pressure coming from? What's going on there?
Well, it's from the Islamists and the government. They would like to see all of the Christians go to South Sudan because they believe that is a Christian state. So if you're Christian...
Since they have a new country now.
Yes, about 2 years old now. So go down to South Sudan, live there. But Christianity has been in Khartoum for centuries. It was there before Islam. Why should they have to leave in their homes that they've been there for generations? Why should they leave, close their churches, and go down to the south? They want to remain. But unfortunately, we're seeing almost like a genocide against Christians in the north.
Wow. What is your sense? Does the U.S. government really care? Do they even read this report? Do they have any impact on the countries that are stipulated and highlighted in the report?
I don't think the U.S. has done much about it, the countries that are highlighted in these reports, other than putting pressure on those governments. They raise it as an issue. For example, Vietnam several years ago, the U.S. Council on International Religious Freedom listed them in their annual report on their watch list as a nation of particular concern. The Vietnamese backed off for a while. But then when we back off and the pressure lessens, guess what? They're back to the same old business again, persecuting especially Christians in the mountain areas. So what good is this report, really? It raises awareness, but beyond that, there's not a lot of teeth behind it.
Yeah, well, we do need to continue to talk and highlight these various situations and countries that where people
and
are
we do that here at CBN News. We
Yeah.
try to do that regularly.
Gary, thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Up next, the Archbishop and the Prime Minister. Why this UK Christian leader is calling out David Cameron's government for discrimination. .com. News you want, when you want, 24/7. Stay current with up-to-the-minute stories.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, New York.
I don't have to wait for my news anymore. CBNnews.com at your fingertips all day long.
I only watch the stories I want to see.
I find the story, I click on it, and boom, I'm there.
Embassy in Washington, Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News.
The source for your news, CBNnews.com.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
He healed the sick, walked on water, and rebuked the storm. Jesus performed miracles that changed the world, and he shared the secret to that power with us.
Learn how to release the power of God's kingdom here on earth.
Get Gordon Robertson's latest DVD teaching, Our Father, Keys to the Lord's Prayer. Available now.
Welcome back. 2/3 of Christians in the United Kingdom believe they are a persecuted minority. That's according to a recent poll. Former Archbishop of Canterbury, George Carey, disagrees that UK Christians are persecuted, but he does believe they're experiencing more discrimination than ever before. He wrote an article in the British press criticizing Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron. UK correspondent Peter Wooding spoke with Lord Carey about his views.
Prime Minister David Cameron's support for gay marriage, along with a growing number of discrimination cases against Christians in the workplace, had led former Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Carey, to accuse the PM of betraying Christians. Lord Carey's article in the Daily Mail accused the government of aiding and abetting discrimination against Christians and said many doubted David Cameron's sincerity in pledging to protect their freedoms.
Yes, I was very keen to make a very clear statement about what I regard as the duplicity of the Prime Minister in saying wonderful words about the Christian church and what the leaders are doing, but the actions of his government go in a completely different direction.
He cites a number of cases where the government has discriminated against Christians in the workplace.
Christians are being discriminated against and some are losing their jobs. Therefore, I think we've really got to stand up for our faith today, whether in America or in Britain, elsewhere. I've often said, if you behave like a doormat, don't be surprised if people treat you like one.
Lord Carey believes it's especially crucial for Christians to speak out against the Cameron government's push to legalise gay marriage.
We must actually work with the government not to rescind our marital laws, but to strengthen marriage. Marriage of one man to one woman with the ideal of till death us do part.
However, he made it clear he does not believe Christians in the West are persecuted, and he does not believe the PM has an anti-Christian agenda. He says the growing decline of religious freedoms has more to do with lack of biblical knowledge.
I think a lot of it has to do with ignorance. We've lost the whole hinterland of Christian theology in our country. And so people can confuse marriage with just being nice to one another. And if one man loves another man, then that is the equal of marriage, which of course it's not. We're inheriting now a heritage of neglect of the Bible. And I think it's a challenge to the churches to get back to scriptural teaching.
Yet he believes that while Christians must speak out, they must be careful in how they communicate their message.
Don't really take anything for granted. Don't let people get away with it, argue. But the second and most important thing is get the tone right. Speak with gentleness. Speak in the truth and love. Be courteous to others.
So as Lord Carey sends out this challenge to UK churches to bring their voices before government, the question remains, will David Cameron listen and bring this nation back to godly values? Peter Wooding for CBN News, London, England.
Thanks, Peter. This week, the Boy Scouts of America decided to allow openly homosexual scouts. The question now, how will this decision impact the organization that's so heavily supported by faith-based groups? Some see the drastic drop in support and mass defections. Dale Hood has the story.
Supporters are celebrating after the Boy Scouts of America decided Thursday to lift their ban on allowing openly gay scouts.
This is what we've been working for. It's a small step in the right direction, but it's huge in another way.
We want every kid to have a place where they belong, to learn and grow and feel protected.
But some on the left felt the Scouts didn't go far enough because they're keeping their ban on adult gays. Still, letting gay boys be scouts could turn into a major problem for an organization with a motto calling on young men to be morally straight. Faith groups sponsor 70% of units nationwide, and many, like the Catholic Church and Southern Baptist, say they will not give up core beliefs to stay with the Scouts. Conservative activist John Stemberger says the loss of such church groups could devastate the organization.
I think you'd see a mass exodus, not only of major denominations, but just of common sense parents saying, you know what, we can't trust scouting anymore. There's not that moral consistency throughout the program.
I've heard several boys say, I'm done. And they'll be within a year of getting their eagle. And getting your eagle is a very, very difficult thing to do.
I think that sexual discussion needs to be at home with the parents.
The change will go into effect next year. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Hi, this is Pat Robertson. This is an important time in the history of America. It's an important time in the history of CBN. And what you do is so very important now. But we've got to get the gospel out here in America. We've got to help the poor and the needy, feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are naked, bring medical attention to those who are suffering, and more than anything, bring hope to those who are without hope throughout the world. So your 700 Club membership makes a huge difference. And I ask you to go to your phone and call. If you haven't already called in, we appreciate what you've done so much. So don't slack. We don't want our hands to be empty. We want to say, Lord, here are those who have come to you because of my labors. Telephones are available, toll-free line, and we just thank God for each one of you. So don't hesitate to call and do it now.
Jesus performed miracles that changed the world, and he shared the secret to that power with you and me.
Get Gordon Robertson's latest DVD, Our Father, Keys to the Lord's Prayer, and discover a deeper relationship with God, how to overcome evil, and realize the life-changing purpose God has for you.
Learn how to release the power of God's kingdom in your life.
Our Father, Keys to the Lord's Prayer, available now.
I just started surfing 5 years ago. We actually said the Lord's Prayer when we got in the water the other day, and that's something I do. I watched Our Father recently, and I loved it. Gordon's teaching of the Lord's Prayer stood out. He's actually showing everybody, or he's teaching the steps to communicate with God. God wants us to be happy. He wants us to enjoy life. He's our Father, and He loves us.
Well, growing up with his missionary parents in Latin America, Stephen Connell suffered from autism. Some cast doubt on his future.
Today, as you'll see in this report from the International Mission Board, he has exceeded all expectations. He tells us his own story, starting with his cartoon character, Stibuno.
Stibuno, he was having a call from the Lord that he must go to a far country. But that time he didn't know what the meaning was, except that he had to go out and learn the language and the gospel and get a new armor. A different armor represents growth. I started drawing manga when I was 16 years old. Not so that I could become famous or rich, but the main purpose of the manga is that children, teenagers, and a lot of people would know who their creator is. Stibuno reminds me a lot about my childhood and how God has been helping me to grow. Ever since I was little, the doctor said that I would not be able to speak any other language because of my diagnosis for autism. Autism really is a brain disorder. A lot of autistic people are very non-social. They would not think that the world belongs to all people or to God. But the Stephen that you're seeing right now has a different view. He sees a lot of people, and life is all about serving the Lord and to love others. Just like the Lord can heal the blind, the Lord can have the mute speak, and the Lord can have the crippled walk, so can the Lord have a person with a disability. The person that cannot speak very much can speak almost 5 languages fluently. I would never imagine that I would really speak Japanese and become a major part in this church in Japan. Well, here in Japan, I work as a volunteer missionary to a Filipino-Japanese church, and I work not only as a translator for the pastor, I also teach English to Japanese children, and also I help the youth in their ministry. I also play a band in the church. I am the keyboard player. So far, of living in Japan all by myself, I learned to depend on the Lord more than myself. I've learned how to love others and respect others. But the most important thing of what I have overcome is to accept of who I am and what am I made for by the Lord. I was made to serve the Lord and to tell people about Christ and to share them the testimony of how God healed me, to let people know that people who have disabilities can have the hope of serving the Lord. Not all of us were made the same. So those who are watching, never give up. Never lose hope, because God is moving in your life. And that's what the Stibuno series is really all about.
That's great. Never give up. Yeah, never give up. And Japan is a tough place to share the gospel.
It is. I loved it. Great story.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope you've been blessed by all of our stories.
Well, until next week, from all of us here, goodbye and God bless you.